This excerpt from Kolatkar is interesting to note because it has many of the characteristic features of Kolatkar. Let's read the poem. It's a short one. It's excerpted from a longer poem. My name is Arun Kolatkar. I had a little matchbox. I lost it. Then I found it. I kept it in my right hand pocket. It's still there. One can see attention to detail, also a very innocent celebration of an ordinary event that he has. There's a little matchbox in his pocket and he's just found it and it's there. He introduces himself, takes his name, and tells us of this detail. There is nothing that is there for us to decipher. Usually, and this is something very important to Kolatkar, it's the way the poem sits on the page itself. That's why you see certain kind of, if I remove this, you will see, sorry, the gaps that are there. My name is Arun Kolatkar. I had a little matchbox. I lost it. I found it. I kept it in my right hand pocket. This comes together. This portion comes together. This is separate. This is separate. The design itself tells you of a temporal gap, and that my name is Kolatkar. I had a little matchbox. So you can see from the present to the past a gap, and that gap is signified also by the space that is there between the pages, it's between the lines itself. And it is in my, I kept it in my right hand pocket. You can see the kept is there and it is still there. The gap is there. It's a mundane activity. And because we don't have anything to decipher, it kind of generates a certain kind of an unease. Many people go on to start investing meaning in this, what is a clear case of over reading, as we call it, that they try to invest meaning in it. Kolatkar seems to be borrowing on what famously was an assertion about a rose is a rose is a rose. If you look at this assertion, you understand that what is being asked is just to read the lines on the page itself, not to keep getting diverted and distracted by the meaning making process. The poem unusually sits there and offers no resolution. That, like, we tend to think of when we are reading poems, we tend to think of tension that will be there. There will be like different kind of images that will like be contradictory, sometimes supplementing, sometimes doing something. Like symbols of something higher, might be an allegory or something of that sort, and we try to think about the interiority that is there, that like what is the poem trying to give us a glimpse of into the narrator, the poet speaker, all of that. He's like, there's nothing of that sort. It goes to the Gertrude Stein kind of a line that rose is a rose is a rose. So you do not need to look beyond it. That Kolatkar's poetry lives uncomfortably somewhere in the middle. That, like, it's not like trying to give us an aura of a great poet, great poem itself, but it's also offering us an insight into the mind of the poet who is interested in the design, the spatial arrangement of it. Also is telling us how poems are made, the mechanics of poetry itself. It approaches a meta commentary on poetry itself, that what constitutes the subject of poetry. Should we call this a poem even? Doesn't look like a poem. Is it a reflection on writing itself? Those are questions that we don't have a resolution of. Like, we don't have anything that we are told at the end that like something like a key, it'll unfurl itself, it will like unlock itself. None of that happens. So we are left almost in a lurch that, oh, exactly what is happening. But Kolatkar is like, I'm just simply telling you a ordinary everyday event, that I have a matchbox in my pocket. That's all that I'm trying to impress upon you. And that's what we get to see in Kolatkar itself. That interest in the mundane everyday, which does not mean that he does not understand the enormity of that everyday itself. He tries to bring us that the mundane nature of it, also the enormity that it comes with it, because the everyday may be invested with stories of the past and stories of future and everything. That observation is what is key to him, and that we see in this poem from Jejuri. He tells us, the title of the poem is The Priest's Son. And this is the first poem from Jejuri that we are reading. These are 5 hills. There are 5 demons that Khandoba killed. Says the priest's son, a young boy who comes along as your guide as the schools have vacation. He is telling, preferably the poet speaker, that of the myth behind these hills, that like these are the 5 demons that the Khandoba, the deity, the presiding deity of Jejuri, the temple town outside of Pune, that that Kolatkar had gone with his brother and a friend, and the poems are based on his visit to that temple town itself, and he's describing as a amused commentator and an observer that as they do in terms of like people who tell you of the specific importance of spaces in temple towns, that the priest's son, who's because there is a vacation of schools, so he has become the guide. So again, very mundane details that are given to you, which are very important and interesting, that like he does not let go of such details itself. And then we'll come to this idea of why is he interest, what is his interest in these details do, and the kind of image that emerges out of these kinds of observations at Jejuri itself. So look at the poem itself. These 5 hills, says the priest's son, a young boy who comes along as your guide. Do you really believe that story? You ask him that like, do you really believe that these were the hills that were the 5 demons that were killed by Khandoba? He doesn't reply, but merely looks uncomfortable, shrugs and looks away, and happens to notice a quick wink of a movement in the scanty patch of scruffy dry grass, burnt brown in the sun, and says, look, there is a butterfly there. From and then now you can see the poem emerging in that sense, from the glorious myth to, at the end, the poem ends with an ordinary everyday. That the butterfly is there. From these big, grand stories, grand narratives of the world itself, we reach a very ephemeral, everyday thing, that like, there is a butterfly. And then you ask him, does he believe in the story? Does he believe in the grandness? His answer is probably somewhere we are not told. The hint is that like he is more interested in the butterfly. Is he trying to divert the topic, the seriousness with which Kolatkar asks him that, do you understand, like do you really believe it, what is your approach towards it, what do you think of this tale itself? He does not understand, but merely looks uncomfortable shrugs and looks away and happens to notice a quick wink of movement in a scanty patch of scruffy dry grass, burnt brown in the sun, and says, "Look, there is a butterfly there." So, what you see is this movement brings in movement in the poem itself. Like you see the lines elongating. Probably this is the longest. This is the longest line here. You will see the longest line coming in. You have alliterations happening. You have burnt brown in the sun. You have rhymes that are coming in, so that there is a speeding up to mimic the movement of the fluttering of the butterfly. That look there goes a butterfly. See, there is a butterfly here. So we are told of, as I said, against grand narratives, very local and little traditions or narratives, right? Against the narrative that like, oh, this is the Sthala Purana of the place, that like these are the hills where the 5 demons lived, and like there was a grand narrative or mythical narrative. You have the small little narrative of like, oh, there is a butterfly, and it's not even a narrative, it's like an everyday event. Against the hills, the mighty hills which are not unmovable in that sense, you have the butterfly. The movement of the butterfly, the life of butterfly, the life that is there against these hills which are which do not have life in them, right? That like these 5 hills that are there, right? And you see both the priest's son as well as the narrator are both liminally positioned. The priest's son does not know what to do because he is a guide here, but he does not know what to say when being asked question, and these kinds of questions about religion itself, which kind of probably may poke at the heart of the Sthala Purana of the place, that like, do you believe this story? Does not say yes or no, but he knows that he derives his identity, probably his income in everything, from this narrative itself. So he is quite liminally positioned. We see the narrator. It's very easy to probably think of the narrator as someone who does not believe and is a skeptic, who does not believe in religion and everything. But if he is not a believer in religion, then why is he interested in these? Why is he interested in these details itself? He shouldn't be interested in these details, right? He should not be invested in that sense, that what is there, what is not there. He can easily dismiss the entire thing, that like, oh, these stories are not true, this like sounds not true to a rational mind or something of that sort. But that's not the point. Like, he's able to, the person, the boy who does not answer him, he's focused on this boy's interest in the butterfly. So you see again a liminality in that sense, that though he is probably skeptical of the narrative, this mythical narrative itself about Jejuri, about these temples, about this hill, he still has a empathetic look towards this boy, that realizing that, oh, after all, he's just a young boy, right? He would be interested in the butterfly fluttering away, right? That like, oh, there's a butterfly there and like it's going away, right? And the immediately next poem is called The Butterfly. And then you see what I was trying to tell you in the first poem, I am Arun Kolatkar. The first line itself tells, and it's a contrast, that there is no story behind it. That there is no story behind it. And it's very important to, and I could not do that here, but in the poem, in the collection, poetry collection Jejuri, if you look at it, you will see, if you have a hard copy of it, both these poems are on two sides of the same page, on the recto and verso. So the butterfly is this side, the priest's son is on the other side. And the moment you see, that's why two of them are contrasted. These 5 hills, the are 5 demons that Khandova killed. It's a story. And the first line here says there is no story behind it. It is split like a second. It hinges around itself. We are talking about the butterfly. It's like fluttering away every second itself. It has no future. So the story has no future in that sense. There is only present that is there. There is no past. There is no future. In a way, you can see why both the poems would be on either side of the page. The poet wants to bring out the contrast of it. It has no future. It is pinned down to no past. It's a pun on the present. Are these poems in general a pun on the present itself? It's a pun on the present itself, as he says that, like, it's just playing with the present itself, like fluttering away, and you can see it's also in the spatial design itself. Look, there's a butterfly there, and the butterfly is right there. Look, if you think about the last line of it coming here, look, there's a butterfly here, and the butterfly starts from on this line. So you can see, right, that the butterfly is there, and in that way also it's a pun on the present. Like when you are reading, as a reader, you are also looking at a pun on the present, right? You are reading, and then you are like, oh, am I part of the story here then? The reading experience kind of activates all those meta-narrative and like post-modern, post-structural, post-modern kind of experiments itself. So you can see, Kolatkar's investment in on the page itself. As I was relating earlier, that he was interested in advertising. He was a advertisement person. He worked as a visualizer. So he had a general interest in terms of how the page looks, and therefore his poems are also very spatially designed. That what is the space that we are looking at, and that's why these poems I chose as the first poems to look at from Jejuri, the collection itself. So you can see that it has no future. It's pinned down to no past. It's a pun on the present. It is a little yellow butterfly. It has taken these wretched hills under its wings. It's a pinch of yellow. It opens before it closes and closes before it, and there is a O. Opens, right? It should have been closes before it O. Where is it? It is gone, right? Because it's a pun on the present. It just split like a second. So the butterfly has escaped. The butterfly is not there anymore, and you can see this mimicking it, and you can see the gap also. That, oh, where did it go? Where is the butterfly in that sense, right? So what you get to see is those incredible experiments with space and the page itself in these poems itself. So Jejuri, in that way, if one reads all the poems, there's a order in terms of the theme moving, but also there is a order as to what in the sequence, not just temporally, that he goes from this temple to that temple to this, and we'll talk about that in the next lectures. But there is also a spatial arrangement that is there. This poem, the butterfly, actually almost comes, as Nelekar will tell us, that it comes almost in the middle of the collection itself. A reminder of the present, a reminder that, like, of the ephemeral. We are, and then as he would go on with his commentary on on Jejuri itself, the temple town, what has happened to it, the kind of ruins that it is. It's a ruin almost now, because people have not probably really cared, even though people come as pilgrims and like come to pay their visit to the god. It's not well kept. So in that sense, it's constantly a struggle between the past and the present, the glorious past when Khandoba kills these demons, and Khandoba is such an important god at this point, when Khandoba was a great, like, important god. And contrast to that, the present, where Khandoba's temples are in ruins. The temple town of Jejuri is not well kept in that sense, and the present constantly intrudes into that past itself. Like, the past is there, you can see the past, but then you are reminded constantly, oh, okay, this is also happening. And that's why the butterfly is also a reminder of that past. It's, as we called, it's a pun on the present itself. And what you get to see also, and it's very important to think about this, that why is this poem situated in the middle of the collection itself, is because of Kolatkar's insistence on recording the fleeting, ephemeral moment. That you get to see that he is constantly interested in the ephemeral. And you see this more than anything in Kala Ghoda poems. If you read his Kala Ghoda poems, you will see that Kolatkar is also interested in that ephemerality, where he's sitting in Kala Ghoda, this place in Bombay, at a cafe, and he looks around what is happening. The ephemerality is part of his entire psyche in that sense, if you can call it. You will see that he is constantly reminding us that the ordinary everyday is a repository also of great poetry. It's not as if like it's nothing. One can make poems out of those everyday events also. And this is what also a reminder in that sense, that like, yes, because if you do not pay attention to it, it will just fly away. It will not be there. The moment you look for it, it's probably not there. So one has to be attentive to the everyday, and that's what he is trying to tell us in these poems, that my name is Kolatkar, and this kind of everyday, which uneasily sits, right? Uneasily sits because it does not give us anything to decipher. That's why there is no story behind it. It is just there. The event is right there. You just have to feel its sensations. If we think about Ezekiel's poem, back to his poem on philosophy, where he says, I don't want to be part of those great systems which bring me to light or interpret the world for me. My sensations are enough for me. I understand the world through them, and probably some of those things do not need interpretation. They just need to be felt. And then the butterfly probably is an example of that feeling, that like, unlike religious systems that have to be expounded, look at the butterfly. Doesn't need to be expounded. The beauty is right there. It's a yellow butterfly. It's taken these wretched hills under its wings. It's become like a hyperbolic figure itself, that like it's taken the entire wretched hills under its wings itself, because the butterfly is flying over it. It's just a pinch of yellow. Look at the beauty of it. It's just a pinch of yellow, and the precision of the language itself. And then you can see the modernity coming in. If we go to Baudelaire, who's writing Flowers of Evil in 19th century, and many of the commentators on modernism trace modernism's roots to Baudelaire's poetry. One of the things that Baudelaire did was to capture this ephemeral. The ephemeral became, the ordinary everyday became the subject of poetry itself, and that's where modernity lied. And if that is what modernity is, then Kolatkar obviously qualifies to be that modernist, and that we see in Jejuri itself.